Jennifer, you've been listening into this call. You've read the DOJ's complaint. What are your takeaways?
Well, you know, I think it's not really a surprise, at least to me. The way I read the complaint, it's a very typical vertical theory of harm. That is that the company will have, the merged company will have what is considered must-have content, and that it could be profitable for them to engage in a strategy of raising the price of that content to distribution rivals, because in the long run, they would, to the extent that the distribution refuses to take the content or pay for the content, they would lose subscribers who would move over to AT&T, DirecTV, to get that content.
Now, Randall Stephenson has said they're going to offer a solution. They've said that divesting CNN, Bob, is a non-starter. They've said CNN is maybe the crown jewel of Time Warner. That said, you have an acknowledgement from AT&T's lawyer just now saying that we know the president has talked about his dislike for CNN.
Well, and we can't ignore the political side of this equation, right? I mean, we simply cannot ignore that. And there's going to be discussions back and forth. And the problem is we're never really going to know how much of an influence it has. But, you know, I mean, the interesting side about the vertical combination is that, of course, that just happened a few years back with Comcast and NBC, and that seemed to be fine. So there is arguably legal precedent there, and yet now it's being applied somewhat differently. And of course, I'm sure that's exactly the route that AT&T is going to follow.
Jennifer, we know that this deal was on track until about a month ago when Macon Del Rahim took over the Antitrust Division. You know, how strong is the argument that there is a problem here, that this vertical integration would be anti-competitive?
Well, you know, Emily, it's going to come down to the evidence, which, you know, has yet to be seen. From what I saw in the complaint, they were quoting several documents that they seemed to have pulled from AT&T and DirecTV that didn't look good. Now, those are just blurbs and sort of, you know, excerpts, so we don't know what those documents said as a whole. But it's going to come down to what the economists do and what they show in terms of the incentive and the ability of the company to engage in the kind of discriminatory strategies that the DOJ is alleging that they would engage in, and also how strong their efficiencies are and their rationale for the deal, and to the extent that the deal could have consumer benefits, and you know, the strength of those arguments on their side.
So what specifically doesn't look good?
Well, you know, some comments that and again, you know, these are just excerpts, so you don't really know the entire context for the comment, but comments such as needing to combine the content with the distribution in order to sort of have a better model to better compete against some of the newer, more innovative options like the skinny packages through Sling TV, some of the over-top options. I mean, it looks, some of these suggested that some of the rationale for the deal was, in fact, to be able to have greater clout in the marketplace.
Well, so explain to me, Bob, isn't any merger intended to improve a company's ability to compete?
It certainly
right?
is, and you could make the argument that, in point of fact, AT&T is worried about its ability to compete with, you know, these skinny bundles, again, with the content that's being delivered via Facebook, via Google, via all these other new media, although they don't like to call themselves platforms, and all of a sudden that does change the dynamic, and I think that becomes the question mark. Certainly we're seeing the unbundling of a lot of this stuff, and the notion of being able to do over-the-top services is dramatically changing the whole cable TV and satellite TV distribution mechanism. So a lot of these changes, I think, are going to happen anyway. The question is, will this deal drive those changes or not?
And we're still listening to Randall Stephenson, the CEO of AT&T, speaking with AT&T's lawyers here. Jennifer, what's next? What happens now?
Well, you know, at this point, that this starts the litigation. I mean, the complaint has been filed, and what will happen is the parties will ask for this to be expedited. It likely will be expedited. We're going to see a short period of discovery. Certainly, the companies are likely to seek information about how politics might have played into this, and a trial date will get set, and maybe 4 to 6 months.